Welcome back, everyone. We are moving on to the next panel discussion. It's the potential role of green hydrogen in just transition. This session will present a concrete contribution of green hydrogen to the energy transition. It will be moderated by Marco Caponigro, Project Director, GOPA International Energy Consultants. So give them a warm welcome, silently, of course, but we will start with the session right now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. From the people that are at home, for the people that are in this room, very welcome. Well, I am Marco Caponigro, Sustainable Energy Director from Intec, the energy engineering and advisory company of the GOPA Group. Today, we have a session on one of the most hot topic of the moment, the green hydrogen. It is considered also one of the main contributors for the energy transition. The topic of today is organized in two sessions. One related to Africa and one for Latin America and then especially about Chile. I am glad to introduce and to present the speakers of today. Professor Martin Kalschmidt, Fabian Karels, Camilo Alves, Enrique Ofaril. Welcome. So, in the first session of today, that is related about Africa, and we will present the results of a study financed by the African Development Bank, aiming to propose a preliminary framework that encourages the deployment of green hydrogen in 3 countries. Professor Martin Kalschmidt and Mr. Fabian Karels will go through the investigation and will present the applied methodology, as well as the results. We will be keen to hear the various options to contribute to long-term strategy as a first step in the definition of preliminary level of readiness for the green hydrogen. And later on, we will present concrete investments case in Chile, thanks to Camilo and Enrique. Some few information about, let's say, the organization of the session. We will have 4 speeches, and later on we will have some question pools in which we will ask you to be so kind to choose some answer. And now, before going ahead, we'll be very glad to have a welcome from Philip Scarrett, from the African Development Bank, one of the main funder of the first study related to the 3 countries that we are going to present the results. Please, the presentation of Philip Scarrett is going to happen through a video that in which he says is welcome.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Gareth Phillips and I'm the Manager of Climate and Environmental Finance at the African Development Bank. I'm sorry I am unable to join you at today's meeting to collaborate on knowledge around hydrogen, so I'm sending you a video message. I originally managed to mobilise some resources from the climate investment funds to support this study carried out by Intec on the opportunities for green hydrogen in Africa, and the purpose of the study was really to act as something of a knowledge product to raise awareness amongst the African Development Bank and amongst some of our shareholders and stakeholders, and of course in the countries involved. The study, I think, has been very successful in helping us achieve those objectives, and this presentation is part of the engagement of moving that knowledge forward. Now, briefly, why am I so optimistic and bullish about green hydrogen? As I'm sure you all know, green hydrogen has many applications through the conversion to ammonia for transport and as a feedstock into the chemical industry, and also as a feedstock for other hard to decarbonise sectors such as fertiliser production and cement, steel and glass, which of course are products and commodities that are going to be in very great demand in Africa. I am also very excited about the potential to use green hydrogen for African countries to become low carbon or even net zero emitters and exporters of commodities, particularly to sell those into Europe under the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which would enable African countries to lock into the price of European allowances, which, as I understand it, is probably the best value that you could get for an emission reduction activity at the moment. So I think those are some very exciting opportunities on the sort of the demand side. And of course, Africa has tremendous potential to produce green hydrogen. There are many African countries that have large resources of solar, wind, geothermal and hydropower, which can be used to provide peak demand for the growing population, and then the low cost or less valuable electrons can be channeled towards hydrogen. So I think for all of these reasons, there are many good reasons as to why we should be exploring this. And in terms of a just transition, as I see it, enabling African countries to become net suppliers of energy to the developed world is a very exciting and just option, just pathway for helping African countries address the climate challenge. Thank you very much, and I wish you a good conference.
Thank you, Philips. It is very, very nice to hear that the African Development Bank, together with many other international financial institutions, are already working on the way to increase the opportunities for green hydrogen. And now it's time for the first speech and presentation of today. Professor Dr. Engineer Martin Kalschmidt. After international research activities, has become in 2006 full professor at Hamburg University of Technology, where he is heading the Institute of Environmental Technology and Energy Economist. He published more than 20 books and more than 275 articles in scientific magazines in the fields of renewable energy, with special focus on biomass, biofuels, and power to X. Martin, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Marco, for this very nice introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to being here and a great pleasure to give you a short insight into the work what we have done. Just for explanation, let's say we as Hamburg University of Technology, we are collaborating already since decades with Copa Intec in the field of, let's say, innovative renewable energy projects. So maybe we can start with the presentation, which we just have seen a minute ago. And let's say when we look, yes, here we go. First, let me start with a little bit of background. And there you might see that, let's say, when we look in the past for the last 10 years, we have seen that, let's say, the costs for electricity generation, especially for photovoltaic and wind, has gone down dramatically. This is what you can see very nicely in this graphic here on the screen. What is a little bit annoying in this graphic is that, let's say, it does not show really how much the reduction was, because when we look, for example, for photovoltaic, we had reduced in the last 10 years between 2010 and 2020 the costs for photovoltaic by more than 85%. The same is true, not in the same order of magnitude, but also to a substantial extent for offshore wind. This together with the fact that, let's say, when we look in Africa, that we have a lot of renewable energy, what you can see here very nicely about the possibilities to use solar energy, especially in the north and in the south. And if we look on the next graphic, then you can see that we also have a lot of wind resources, especially in the north and the south. Together with the, let's say, reduced prices, what you can see, what you have seen in the other graph, graphic. And these resources, we can provide very cheap electricity, and this very cheap electricity is basically the resource to provide renewable energy, which then can also be exported to other countries. And this especially on the background that in the last couple of years, the pressure to reduce greenhouse gas emissions has increased significantly. And that means, if we would like to, let's say, summarize this, that let's say based on these very positive resources, what we do have in Africa, the reduced cost of the conversion systems, we can, let's say, feed in this electricity into a renewable energy carrier, and there we can cover the projected global hydrogen demand. What you can see here on the left-hand side, let's say the last projection from, let's say, IEA in 2021, and the right-hand side, the latest projection from DNV from 2022, which has been published a couple of years ago. Even to the fact that they are completely different, so DNV expects half of the demand, we can see very easily that, let's say, demand is so huge that Africa has here a tremendous chance to provide energy and sell this on the market. Therefore, let's summarize this as follows. We see that only renewables, and in particular wind and solar energy, promise a valid, robust and technologically mature, economic viable solution for greenhouse gas neutral energy provision. And in Africa, we have a lot of unexploited potentials for electricity provision from wind and power. Therefore, Africa has a good chance to provide energy to, let's say, cover this demand in a renewable, in a greenhouse gas neutral way. And that means, at the end of the day, that let's say, to pave the road towards increasingly higher shares of renewables, we can use hydrogen as a very promising source. To make this a little bit more clear, where are the resources and what possibilities do we have? For this reason we developed, and this is part of the methodology here, we developed together with Gopa Indec a methodology where we tried to it's a little bit annoying because here on the screen you see something different than over there, and here it stops and then it starts again, so sorry for that. Yeah. So what we do is we develop the methodology basically consisting of two steps. The first step is that we have a kind of site identification. The second step is a kind of project design. And based on this we can make, let's say, robust and reliable decisions if a certain spot, a certain, let's say, location does make sense to develop for, let's say, green hydrogen provision. So the first point is that we have to have a site identification, and therefore we have two steps. The first step is that we go for, let's say, hard criteria, so that means basic site requirements, like, for example, for this example, we define this as, let's say, political stability. We said about coastal access, and last but not least, also available area to use this for windmills, for example, and photovoltaic systems. These are more or less the robust, the more important, the let's say most important criteria, and then we go on step B for a kind of let's say soft criteria, where we do a multi-criteria approach to select regions with especially good conditions for the production and export of hydrogen. This means technological or technical criteria, like the availability of solar and wind energy, like the availability for salt caverns, for example, for storage, and for non-technical criteria, infrastructure, expertise and staff, and other areas. And based on this, we can come out with, let's say, a kind of set of areas where we then go on step 3, 4, and 5, where we, let's say, first identify on a certain spot certain, let's say, site criteria, and this site criteria, these are, for example, the solar radiation and the wind speed in a yearly average. This is the constant availability of green grid electricity, distance of sustainable water resources, etc., etc. So therefore we look a bit more on the site conditions, and based on the site conditions, let's say, we then go to the assessment of hydrogen production systems. So basically on these site conditions we designed then a concept how hydrogen production can be realized, and based on electricity provision, based on the electrolyzer, based on the transport system, based on all the rest, till we come at a coastal place where we can ship or export this hydrogen, and this is assessed by the cost of hydrogen production. And then to make the whole story complete, in our last step, this was been too fast, in the last step, let's say we evaluate the overall hydrogen supply chain where we, let's say, start on the coastal place, on the harbor, and then look how we can bring this hydrogen to the final customer, and this is done by various energy transport options are analyzed. So basically what we would like to explain to you is that, let's say, the developmentology approach is flexible, can be flexible, adapted to various regions, areas and countries. The approach can help to identify most promising concepts to allow for a subsequent and much more target-oriented planning phase. The assessment method is user-friendly and can be used easily by well-trained engineers, and the result can help to understand what are the pros and the cons, what are the possibilities and the constraints to develop such hydrogen projects, and therefore it can help to prepare transparent and easy to follow ways of the decision if we go forward with such a, let's say, project or not. With this, I would like to pass over to my colleague, and he will present you some of the results. So, Fabian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Kalschmidt. Now it's the turn to present the results from Fabian Karels, Research Associate at the Institute of Environment Engineering and Energy Economics at Hamburg University Technology as well. And furthermore, he is also a consultant at GOPA, International Energy Consultants. He deals with a wide range of techno-economic questions in the field of renewable energy. And he focuses much more on power to X, and such as green hydrogen and green methanol.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marco. I hope you can hear me. As have been said, within the next few minutes I will show you an example for the use of the methodology presented by Professor Kalschmidt and how the respective results look like. So the slides, please, would be great. Thank you. Yeah, the countries of North Africa in this case will be subject of the application of the exemplary methodology. So in the first step, here the aim is to identify suitable regions or locations for the production and the export of the green hydrogen. Afterwards, in the second step, I will show you how to design an optimized plant for minimum hydrogen production costs, and how the hydrogen can be exported to high potential sales markets. Yeah, so first of all, let's start with the basic site requirements. So the countries you can see here have been examined in terms of the basic site requirements, and this includes, as have been said by Martin, political stability, coastal access and area availability in order to have enough sufficient space for the construction of the plant and all the other surroundings. So on the next slide you see the analysis of the basic site requirements, and this leads to the exclusion of Libya. Libya doesn't meet the minimum requirement regarding political stability and is therefore not a suitable candidate for hydrogen production projects. All the other countries, which are Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia and Egypt, do meet the site requirements, basic site requirements, and are in the next step subjected to the detailed suitability assessment. So the suitability assessment includes, as you have heard by Martin, technical on the one hand side and on the other hand side non-technical criteria. On this slide, here you see the calculated on-site hydrogen supply costs. All the values refer to a project realization in the year of 2030. The hydrogen supply costs, the specific hydrogen supply costs, depend on all relevant technical criteria, such as the conditions for the use of solar and wind energy, but also as on the availability of water. The map can therefore be seen as a result of the technical suitability assessment, as it includes all the different technical criteria. The red to yellow colors indicate very low on-site hydrogen supply costs. The blue and green colors indicate higher hydrogen supply costs. And you see that the countries of North Africa, almost all of them, all have very good spots for low-cost hydrogen. So in the next step, we merged the analysis of the technical potential with the non-technical criteria. We did this to identify in the end suitable locations as have been explained. So the non-technical criteria, for example, include infrastructure or the availability of well-skilled workers to build up and run the production plants. So to show an example for such a well-suited region, let's have a look on the southwestern part of Morocco, respectively Western Sahara. So here we have very low on-site hydrogen supply costs, as well as direct access to the coastline, which makes it easier to export the produced hydrogen directly to potential sales markets by ship. Another example for a promising region for hydrogen production and export is here the southeastern part of Egypt, where low on-site hydrogen supply costs meet a well-developed infrastructure in terms of roads and ports. So this makes it easier to set up the hydrogen production plant on the one hand side, and later to export the hydrogen to the sales markets. So after suitability, suitable sites have been identified, I will now present the design of an optimized hydrogen production plant on the next couple of slides. So here we choose the example of southeastern part of Egypt and one specific region for the exemplified presentation of the optimized hydrogen production plant. The goal is to make it clear again, to size all components you can see here in the square and to achieve minimum hydrogen supply costs. And the electrolyzer with a capacity of 100 megawatt serves as a reference value, as a reference part of the overall production plant. The results of the mathematical optimization show that minimum on-site hydrogen supply costs can be achieved by oversizing the renewable energy capacities. This means that we have more and larger renewable energy capacities in forms of onshore wind power and solar power here in this case, compared to the capacity of the electrolyzer. And by oversizing the renewable energy capacities, high utilization of the electrolyzers can be achieved, which leads to lower specific costs of the electrolyzer on the specific hydrogen supply costs. Another important part of the optimized system is quite big hydrogen storage facility, and in this case the storage facility has a capacity of over 1,000 tons of hydrogen, and we need this storage facility in order to enable a constant supply of hydrogen to the customer. And as can be seen, the hydrogen supply cost, which can be reached with this optimized plant, are in the range of 3.4 euros per kilogram hydrogen, and to repeat it again, for the year 2030. So let's have a look on the cost breakdown of the hydrogen supply costs. As can be seen in the bar chart here, the provision of renewable electricity is responsible for roughly half of the overall hydrogen supply costs. Another important cost driver is the investment costs and the operating costs of the water electrolyzer to produce the hydrogen. Water supply, as can be seen here in yellow, plays only a minor role, and for water supply we considered desalination of salt water. After analyzing the on-site hydrogen supply costs, we now go a step further and have a look on the supply of the hydrogen to a potential sales market. And here, in the first step, we identified Central Europe as promising sales market for hydrogen produced in Egypt. And for the transportation of the hydrogen from the production plant in Egypt to the consumer in Central Europe, we considered transportation by pipeline. And as you can see on the right side, the hydrogen transportation costs by pipeline are in the order of roughly €1 per kilogram. This leads to hydrogen supply costs in Europe of about €4.3 per kilogram, and again for the year 2030. So last but not least, I just want to have a brief look with you together on the energy efficiencies of the overall hydrogen supply chain too. And it can be seen that, I don't want to go too much in detail because we have not so much time anymore, but it can be seen that the overall energy efficiency related to all the electricity produced by wind and PV systems is roughly about 55%. And the largest energy losses occur during the splitting of the water, so losses by the electrolyzer, as well as due to excess energy, which is electricity produced by the PV and solar systems and cannot be used by the electrolyzer because, as I have explained in the beginning, the electrolyzer has less capacity compared to the renewable energy plants. Okay, and lastly, let's draw a conclusion. So we have seen that a wide range of different criteria must be taken into account when selecting suitable locations for the production and the export of green hydrogen. We have seen that several regions in Northern Africa show excellent condition for the production of green hydrogen and its export, especially when we talk about only the technical criteria, so reaching low hydrogen supply costs. For 2030, on-site hydrogen supply costs in the range of €3 to €4 can be achieved in several regions of Northern Africa. And this leads to hydrogen supply costs of €4 to €5 per kilogram in Central Europe when we consider transportation by pipeline from Northern Africa to Central Europe. Yeah, thank you for your attention. And with this, I want to give it back to Marco.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fabian. That's very interesting study. I mean, we are very interested to see the final results that will be presented at the COP this year in Egypt. So now we can consider the first part of the session related to Africa concluded, and we move to talk about Latin America and Chile. And this is my pleasure to introduce Enrico Farril, that has 30 years of experience in international cooperation, where he led technical negotiations teams for bilateral, triangular, multilateral cooperation with different types of organizations and states like Japan, Germany, United States, US, IDB, World Bank. Please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Chile is a country in development and transition. Like most countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, we have a dual nature. We both are recipients of international cooperation, and we also cooperate with others, especially with third countries that request it, through South-South cooperation and also triangular cooperation. For many years now, our Chilean Agency for International Cooperation for Development has carried out sustained efforts to promote the international debate on development and the restriction to receive official development assistance by the Development Assistance Committee of the OECD, the DAC in English. We have supported since the beginning the concept of development in transition. And development in transition is an analytical framework that proposes to restore the multidimensional nature of development that is needed for the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. Therefore, it's applicable to all countries, regardless of their level of income. This approach considers that development cooperation is a continuum which seeks to overcome the structural gaps and challenges of the middle income and high income countries, which in the case of Latin America are most countries with one exception, Haiti, of course. This requires to go beyond GDP per capita as the only criteria to measure development. The development challenges of Latin America and the Caribbean are being aggravated after the pandemic and their social, economic, and climatic consequences. The vulnerabilities of the region need a complex new narrative for development cooperation. It was mentioned in one panel this morning that we should not talk so much about aid, but international cooperation, and that's the approach that we have from the Chilean cooperation. Upon graduation, middle income and high income countries lose access not only to official development assistance flows, but also technical cooperation and opportunities for human capital formation. In terms of transforming development in transition into development for action, Chilean cooperation has promoted the establishment, for several years now, by the way, the establishment of partnerships for development with all partners, South, North, it doesn't matter. On the other hand, we have created together structure, co-financed, and created a bilateral fund with the European Union, with INPA to be precise, in the framework of the Regional Facility for Development in Transition. And this bilateral fund it's, as I mentioned, co-financed by both parties, promotes technical cooperation and partnerships. In that framework, we have now approved and are implemented, we are in the final stages of implementation of 2 projects, and one of them, this is finally why I made this introduction, is that one of them is to launch, we did it, a call for pre-investments in green hydrogen for enterprises in Chile, with participation also from enterprises in Europe. And this partnership, I think, has been very successful. We are going to close out and evaluate this project with the hope to launch a new phase of development and transition funds together with EU. And my colleague from the Ministry of Energy will refer to this project in more detail. So I wanted to give you this introduction to put the bilateral fund together with the EU on development and transition in perspective for the project that will be presented to you now by my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Enrique. And now it's the time for Camilo Aviles, that is the head of the new Energy Carriers Unit of the Fuels and New Energy Carriers Division at the Ministry of Energy of Chile, where he is responsible of the deployment of the national green hydrogen strategy. Before joining the Ministry of Energy, Camilo worked at the private sector as commercial specialist in the generation company AES Andes, and as technical consultant, a specialized electric consultancy called Systep. I'm glad to give the floor to you.
Hello, can you hear me? Hopefully. Yeah, I'll try to be brief as we don't have too much time. Please, the presentation. I can see the slides, so just wait a few minutes. Do I have a slides? I guess I... You know what's going on?
We are waiting for the slides again.
No, that's not mine. No.
Sorry. Previous presentation.
Yeah.
If you can move to the third presentation.
Just hold on.
While we are waiting for the presentation, maybe I can try to make some questions to Professor Kalschmidt. Yeah? Say, because, I mean, we were very interested to hear you talking about the different, let's say, scenarios and opportunities and methodology. We said oversizing in order to make a high utilization of oversizing the renewable in order to reach a high utilization of the electrolyzers in order to reduce the low cost. That seems very interesting. That seems very attractive. But then I have a question. I mean, in order to, what are, let's say, the steps and the criteria that a country should fulfill in order to put as a front runner in this international worldwide challenge? Who wants to answer from you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Now I hear myself twice. Huh? Yeah, thank you very much for this question. If, let's say, I think that African countries have a tremendous chance and a good chance to, let's say, provide energy for, let's say, parts of the world if they develop the necessary infrastructure and if they provide, let's say, green energy. From that point of view, I think it's important that the infrastructure is developed, that they get experience with new technologies, that they start to develop small and medium-sized demonstration projects where they can show that it works, that they can solve the still existing problems, and they get, let's say, lots of experience, that they are able to, let's say, scale up this technology in the years to come. From that point of view, I think now it's the right time that they start to make, let's say, demonstration projects, because the market in Europe is based on the problems what we do have with, let's say, the energy provision. The market is developing, and therefore opportunities arise. And if you are, let's say, under the first, let's say, projects, then you can get, let's say, a kind of premium on the market, and you have a pole position when the market will expand in a longer term.
Recently, I was at Germany and Africa Energy Forum in Hamburg, and I have the chance in 2 days to see several presentations from several countries. And what it really surprised to me to see that there are some countries in Africa that are very, let's say, very keen in order to play a role in this, like South Africa, Namibia, Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal. I mean, there is a real interest. I mean, according to you, what are, let's say, the future that they are going to face in front of them, and also in terms of cooperation with Europe?
Well, I mean, on one hand side, the challenge what the countries have to face is that on one hand side they have to make their own energy provision, their own energy system more, let's say, sustainable. So they have to phase out on one hand side the use of fossil fuel energy on their own country. On the other hand side, they have to develop an export infrastructure that they can, let's say, export green energy to the north and to other countries outside from Africa. So, and both goals can complement each other in an ideal way. Yeah, because if you developed one infrastructure, this also can be used on the other side. Therefore, I do see that there is currently a very good chance to develop this, especially on the background that the energy prices are currently quite high, and therefore the revenues, what you can gain with such a strategy, especially for green energy, with the premium what you can get for green energy, is therefore quite promising. From that point of view, yeah, you can go both pathways in parallel.
Yes, thank you, Martin, Professor Kalschmidt. And I would say that we can try to overcome our technical issues here, and Camilo, let's say, can talk about this interesting activities that was run in Chile in order to know a little bit more. I mean, please, Camilo.
Yeah. So sorry for the delay. I don't know if I have the slides or not. I guess that I sent to you, but it doesn't matter. I could also talk just looking at my cell phone. So sorry that you're not able to see the slides, though there were beautiful slides. But the key here is that, thank you EDD Days, and thank you the European Commission for letting me to be here. Also thank you to the Chilean Agency for International Cooperation for Development that asked me to come here and to say something about green hydrogen. I work for the Ministry of Energy now, so I'm representing the ministry from Chile. We launched our national green hydrogen strategy in November 2020. Yeah, so it's almost 2 years since we launched our strategy. It's ambitious. It has ambitious goals, but we are creating the pathway towards the sustainable industry. So why we did that in 2 years ago, all right? Because we saw a huge opportunity for us, for a small economy in Latin America and the Caribbean countries sites. But because green hydrogen holds the key. Well, I have my presentation now, so I'll try just to be here. Yeah. So green hydrogen holds the key to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. We are aligned to international economies to foster the creation of this industry. And we know because of we have made some estimations that green hydrogen will enable us to decarbonize hard-to-abate sectors, right? And IEA called it the missing link because, it will allow us to finally decarbonize those energy sectors that were kind of lost because we didn't know that we have a solution for them. So that's why we launched our strategy, and that's why we are here. I'm here talking to you. So latest estimations put around $1 the kilogram by 2030. Production on-site cost for the green hydrogen from Chile, right? Despite of the distance, we remain competitive, because we have huge resources, very good resource about solar resource in the north. We have the driest desert in the world, and also we have these strong winds in the Magallanes region, southern area of the world, right? So this is not about competition, right? It's just about cooperation, as Enrique said, international cooperation. That's why I'm here talking about green hydrogen. And the numbers are numbers. Of course, there's a huge path to achieve those numbers. It's not easy. We need everything from territorial coordination. The politics have to be aligned as well. So we are trying to foster and to reach this ambitious goal. Just as I said before, we have some ambitious goals. So we are keen to have 25 gigawatts of electrolysis capacity by 2030. So that's our most ambitious goals, and also to achieve this low production cost, of course. Just I don't know if you all know, if you happen to see that we had a change in our administration 3 months ago. So there are almost 100 days since a new president took place. So it's Gabriel Boric, and I used to work for the former administration, and now I'm working for this other one. So I happen to see, the changes, and we are having some changes, but we know what is the key, and we know what is the pathway. So we're having a mission-oriented approach in which both public and private sectors are committed to this industry. And Gabriel Boric, our new president, just said it before, and he is very keen to do it and to foster this strategy. So just about why I'm here really. I'm just not about talking about what we're doing in the Ministry of Energy, but to talk about what we have been doing with the Chilean Agency for International Cooperation for Development, and also with the private sector, because we had 7 companies that were awarded by this fund. It was for 300,000 euros, and this allows us to have 7 projects actually in the north, in the center of Chile, and also in the south. So this is huge for us. It's not you are not talking about the money that obviously Joe Biden has just promoted 2 or 3 months ago, but we're having some steps. So we are very keen if it would be possible to have a new call. Maybe, we don't know, hopefully, because that gives us, the potential to be also engaged with not only with Chilean companies, but also with international companies that are very keen to come to Chile and to invest in Chile and to invest in a green economy, right? So these are the main projects. We have 3 in the Atacama Desert. We have 1 just in the center, and we also have 3 in the south. If you want to see more details about these projects, of course, you could just go to the C12 stand where we have more information. And also with us, we have one of the consultants that was part of this study. Sorry. So this is my one of my last slides. I just want to say that we are having three things on mind now. So we are trying to integrate territorial and energy planning. Of course, we have to deal with the social outreach, and we need to reunite. Of course, we need the politics to be aligned with the people and to give value to the territories. Of course. We're also very keen to foster infrastructure consortium, so we could unlock finance. We need the infrastructure rollout, of course. Chile is a very narrow country, but very long, so we have access to the sea. So that gives us a lot of potential to ports, and to there will be enough sea for transport this green hydrogen that we will be producing in our territory. And finally, we are fostering, of course, our international outreach, as we need the international collaboration. That's why I'm here once again. And, we have signed several MOUs with several countries, including Singapore, including Korea, and also with some ports, Port of Rotterdam, Port of Hamburg, and Bruges. And also we are having conversations with Port of Hamburg and some countries like Japan as well. So we are, this strategy gives us a position in the world, as we are, in the southest part of the world. We are being recognized as one of the leaders in this economy. So thank you so much for hearing me, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Camilo. Thank you very much. I don't know if we have still time for a question pool. I ask for one question pool. Okay. So then we put on the screen the question pool. We will comment it, take the first one of the list. We will have a look, and then we will ask you here and for the people that are at home or in the office in order to vote. So let's go for the first questions. Okay, then when we are ready, otherwise we can progress. Okay, we are still waiting for the questions, and in case we should not yet to come, we can try to rise up for the conclusion. I mean, no questions coming? Well, in the meantime, I mean, I will say I will start to wrap up the conclusion, because I mean, I think that every one of us present in this room and also stay at home has seen that something is moving, and it's moving here in Europe, it's moving in Germany, it's moving in Africa, and it's moving in Chile, it's moving in Latin America. I mean, so the way towards the energy transition has started. I mean, if I think about this, I don't know, 5 years ago, I will say almost unbelievable. A lot of stakeholders would have not think about it. But from the time that the EU launched the first energy strategy in 2020, and then many other member states did the same, and also the aggregation of stakeholders with the alliance of the companies inside the hydrogen and the clean hydrogen, and also in many other, let's say, states of Europe, things that's going to change. And we have started to move on. And this is what we have presented today. I mean, a group of technical people, consultancy, advisor, science, that are, let's say, politicians and institutions that are working all together in order to make this energy transition available. I mean, in order to identify the first step, in order the states will need to move, in order to get the data. Of course, I mean, today we are still at the beginning of a stage. In order, still maybe some benchmark seems to be very, let's say, to be very high in order to be reached. But we saw, as Professor Carl Schmitt has shown to us, that the way in which the solar went down in terms of cost, and also as the battery has followed the same price, and also electric mobility is going, is very giving us a very promising future in front of us. So, the challenge has started. We are ready, we are already working, and we will be glad in order to cooperate with many other countries and organizations on the world to give our own contribution. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Fabian. Thank you, Camille. And thank you, Enrique.
Thank you, Marco, and thank you to our panelists. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are heading into a break. We will be back at 4:05 for a new panel discussion. We will start a new series around, just give me 1 second, green and just energy transition. And we will start with European architecture for development, delivering joint inclusive responses to climate crisis. Thank you very much, and we will see each other at 4:05.